In this final 10th part of the Installing the Bathroom LVP project, we're going to talk about reconditioning the shoe molding. So I got it all out in the garage, and I just take a little nick out of it with the Dremel tool and a diamond cut blade, and then I grab a hold of it with the pliers and break it off. Now you could do this just by nicking it with a pair of cutting pliers, but this just seemed a little bit easier. Then I go ahead and scrape off any caulk that I find on the back of the shoe molding, and also along the top and in the joints between the two pieces of shoe molding. I'll also trim off, and especially along in between the two pieces, sometimes that can be a pain when you're reinstalling because it doesn't fit quite like it used to, and if that's in the way, that gets to be a little bit hard. So anyway, once I get that done, and this isn't really necessary, but I get the grinder out and I just grind off the nails that I've broken off. It's not necessary, but it's just sort of nice. It only takes a second. So here I am doing all the pieces in fast motion, just going through and trimming off now, and then grinding off the nails. So then the next step was just to paint them, and so I had them all in a big pile and I laid them out, and I started painting. I'm not the most expert painter in the world, but generally you don't want to take instruction from me from painting. But I just got them all sort of coated with a coat of paint. Usually this is not my job. Usually that's the painter in the family. I'm not the painter in the family, but she's busy, so I am doing this. So the next step is to reinstall the shoe molding. So I got a compressor here connected up to a little brad nailer. I'm borrowing this, and seems to work pretty nice. Got some 2-inch brads in there, or 1 3/4 or something. And so I just took all the pieces of shoe molding and I laid them threw them out in the room, and they're all numbered, like I remember from the earlier video, and just set them up where they go and pop them in. Yeah, and for the most part this worked pretty good. The nails, the nail head sunk a little bit, not too much, and when I was nailing into the base molding, the casing there, it wasn't a problem at all. It went right in nice, and I dry fit them first, make sure that the moldings, shoe moldings, sort of got back into where they belonged, and they seem to go pretty good for the most part. And then got the nailer out there, and a little bulky sometimes. You got to flip it around, but got a few nails. Trying not to nail where the old nails were because the wood is a little bit weaker there and cause it to split. But for the most part, I was able to get the majority of the shoe molding back in place in literally just a couple of minutes. It was amazing how quickly I was able to get everything back in place. Just sort of line it up where it used to be, and grab the nailer and pop a few brads into it, and it works pretty quickly. Now if you don't have a brad nailer, you could do it the old-fashioned way, which I'm about to show you, because around the tub the brad nailer just didn't work. But right here and along most of the room, the brad nailer worked great and got it back in no time. But around the tub, when I tried to go, you're not allowed, not allowed. The tub, you can't nail into, because it's like, I don't know what it is, what material it is. But when I tried to go down into the subfloor with these long nails, there was a big air gap, and then the nail sort of just curled up, and it didn't hold the piece of shoe molding. So these just broke right off real easily. So I had to figure out another way to get this in place. So I decided I would pre-drill, and then nail with just some traditional nails and hammer and nail kind of thing. So I pre-drilled through the shoe molding just so it wouldn't split, and I sort of knew where it was going to come out. I didn't want it to come out into the floor, and I didn't want it to come out onto the tub, so I had to get it to come out into sort of the corner there. And so I decided I'd pre-drill, and then I took these regular nails, and I sort of got started the nails, and then once I got the nails started, then I set up the shoe molding and just pounded it in the rest of the way. And then after I had it nailed in, I used the nail set to drive the nail heads a little bit down so that I was able to fill that with caulk. So now we're going to talk about caulk. Again, probably not the best person to ask about this, but this is what I do. I take a little bit of caulk and I smear it in there with my finger. Okay, there you have it. Also taking a little bit of caulk, and usually the putty is a little bit better for this, but caulk is good enough for who it's for. It's for me. And then take a wet rag, a pretty wet rag, fairly damp, more than damp rag, pretty darn wet rag, and just get all the caulk off. And I just went over the baseboards too, because the painter in the family is going to come back and tidy up, because you see that she didn't really take too much care with respect to the wall paint, because she knew she was going to be doing the baseboard shortly. So anyway, yeah, just take the caulk and run a little bead down the area here, and then just have a nice wet rag, and a bowl of water is handy, because I like to I like to have my finger really quite wet when I'm doing this, and just go ahead and get all the caulk back off. And then once you're fill in the nail holes, and then once you're done, you can take that wet rag and just go down and clean off all the caulk, and try not to pull too much caulk out of the nail holes, but it works out pretty good. So there you have it. The room is finished, and it's go around the perimeter here, got all the shoe molding on, and and inside the closet. And so around the rest of the room, we'll look at the floor. But I wanted to say this is the most ambitious YouTube project that I've ever done. It took a long time to produce, much longer than if I just would have done the project as a home repair guy. But I think it came out pretty good, and I hope that you got some insight into some of the thought processes and some of the problems that I encountered and how I resolved them. Hopefully you've learned something. I know I did, just learning a little bit about how to do a project like this, and that's about it. So I hope you enjoyed it. Hopefully you'll find all this detail worthwhile.